We are here today to strengthen the relationship between CRNM and the labor movement in the Caribbean, represented by the Caribbean Congress of Labor. And we're going to do so through the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding, MoU. Now, I want to say a word or two about the background and, if you want, rationale for this before coming to the contents of the MoU itself. There are at least two important aspects of background that I would like to highlight. And one has to do with the importance of labor in the context of international trade negotiations. Because labor can benefit and labor can lose as a result of liberalization. Labor can benefit from the opening up of external markets and therefore the increased exports that may come from our region, which itself can redound to an increase in employment. It can benefit labor in the sense that they can have better employment. But there can be downsides for particular groups or sectors, industries, depending on the way in which liberalization is negotiated. Because liberalization entails some opening, which means some challenge from imports from outside. It could even be from investment from outside. And that can have a downside in terms of employment, in terms of production, and so on. There's another aspect in which labor is very much involved nowadays in these trade negotiations. And that has to do with the element of labor standards. One of the things that we want to ensure in the Caribbean is that international labor standards remain high and they are not reduced in any way in order to attract investment. Many of the industrialized countries want labor standards on the negotiating table because their constituencies, in particular their labor constituencies, are alleging that the imports that are coming into their markets are the product of cheap labor, and by that they mean unfair labor. So that is the challenge we have to fight, of course. There are differentials in terms of labor wages and so on between developing countries and developed countries. And quite often those differentials are a function of the markets in which they operate. But there can be labor that is exploited also, so that one understands it from their point of view. In our case, we want to ensure that the highest labor standards are kept, that labor laws are maintained, and that sort of thing. And of course, we have fairly high standards and a vibrant trade union movement in the Caribbean. So that is one aspect of background that I thought I would highlight. There's another aspect of background which is related, and that is that in the negotiations, we want to have a broad constituency of non-governmental bodies, non-governmental representatives. We call them non-state actors or civil society and so on. So labor is one element in that cluster of non-state actors that we engage fairly routinely, some more than others. We have engaged, for instance, the private sector more than we have engaged other non-state actors or other civil society actors. And there's a reason for this. The reason has to do with the fact that necessarily we have to find the interests of particular industries, what they want and what can harm them, what it is they don't want, okay? And we have to do that almost industry by industry. And that gets very complicated when you move from the better-known sectors like agriculture and manufacturing to a less-known sector like services, which itself comprises a whole range of subsectors and various activities within that. So you have to engage fairly intensely and broadly with the private sector. The compulsion is not as great for other non-state actors. But we have, over time, had a number of interfaces with labor, normally activities organized by labor itself, be that at the national level or at the regional level. At the national level, where you can speak of individual unions, for instance, or a national confederation of unions, as distinct from the regional level as represented by the Caribbean Congress of Labor. And we have had a number of activities with them over time, normally in the form of seminars and so on, and we have invited them from time to time to our technical working groups, and they may attend or they may not attend.